song is well, it's an important song. It's an important song in my career and my life because musicians. Well, you know the joke about what is a musician without a girlfriend? Homeless. Oh, I forgot they were here.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are in our hallways, please direct yourself to your seats. We will be starting with the afternoon session in a couple of minutes.
Family and it was a really tough time. And this song that I wrote was recorded by Laura Branigan, and she had a big hit with it. And then
A nuestros participantes les pedimos que procedan a la sala principal de nuestra sesión de la tarde. Vamos a empezar dentro de unos instantes.
This was kind of the beginning of my songwriting career taking off, and then about 10 years later I recorded it. And it's called How Am I Supposed to Live Without You?
Boa tarde. Pedimos aos nossos participantes para avançar para a sala principal para nossa sessão da tarde. Vamos a começar pronto. Didn't come here for crying, didn't come here to break down. Just a dream of mine is coming to an end. And how can I blame you when I build my world around the hope that one day we'd be so much more than friends?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you've enjoyed lunch, and we are asking that you please make your way into the ballroom and be seated so that we can continue with the afternoon portion of our program. Thank you.
very, very much. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm hoping that you have grabbed some coffee. Thank you for the spotlight. The last one to sit will need to sing on stage. Maybe that helps. The last one on their seats will have to sing on stage. Michelle and I made that commitment. Michelle, where are you? We're going to make them sing. El último en llegar en su silla va a cantar. Vamos a ver si ayuda. Monta canta. Okay. Yeah, some people are going to sing for us. So. If you are in our hallways, please kindly do direct yourselves to your seat so that we can start the afternoon session. And the doors are closing, so. Okay, a very good afternoon to everybody. How was lunch? Yeah, excellent. I know when we have a heavy lunch, the idea is that we do normally an icebreaker and we make you stand and jump on the chair to get the digestion going, but we're not going to do that. We're going to skip that. So I am sure that this morning you got a lot of information to think about. And this afternoon we're going to have some more interesting presentations that will be going on. And I'm going to allow Michelle just now to introduce our presenters. Just a couple of housekeeping notes. This morning, I think you noticed that we had to, as a result of some challenges we had in our organization of the morning sessions, that we had to skip the panel discussion. So our sincere apologies for that. There were many people that were saying, I want to say something. Okay, we will allow you that opportunity because we believe in the importance of interacting and creating dialogue between both regions and the people from Aruba. So we kindly ask you to submit your questions to what you see on screen. It's info@eumeetsamericas.com. So if you have any questions for our panel members for this morning, anything, any suggestions, questions, you want to exchange some ideas, please send your email to this email address, and our staff, our EMA staff, will be more than happy to direct it to the specific presenter so that you can get some response. In addition to that, the presentations of this morning, because we got those questions, where can we get those presentations? Well, the EMA staff is working hard at downloading the presentations for those who had the presentations. And you also have live streaming, so I'm sure that this will be available on the website. You will be able to see the presentation, or you'll be able to download any presentations that you've seen in the early part of this morning, and I'm sure those who will be presented for this afternoon. So you just go to the website, that is eumeetsaruba.com, and you'll be able to do that. So are we game? Yes? We're ready. Michelle, they're ready for you. Yes. I'm sorry, EU Meets Americas. Very good observation. Somebody's awake. Give him a round of applause. EU Meets Americas. Thank you. Thank you for that. Michelle, are you ready?
I'm good.
Nobody's singing?
Nobody's singing. I decided to have mercy on them.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have started our afternoon session, and our speakers this afternoon are going to focus on opportunities for a sustainable world. Our first speaker for this afternoon is Mr. Daan Rozengaard. He is a designer and innovator who wants to upgrade reality with his interactive landscapes that instinctively respond to sound and movement. With projects ranging from fashion to architecture, he creates smart and social designs that have a futuristic relationship with people. His lab studio, Rozengaard, develops its own technology and designs. Daan Rozengaard has won the TIM Award for Most Innovative Leader, Charlotte Kohler Award, 2 Dutch Design Awards, and China's Most Successful Design Award. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Mr. Daan Rozengaard.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. I am not a politician, nor the director of a large commercial company. I am an artist. I'm an innovator. The New York Times recently quoted that I was the hippie with a business plan, something I could really appreciate as well. But what I think we all have in common today is this. This is an image which I saw on my Facebook stream, sort of floating around. A photo which was made during the inauguration of the Pope, Holy Moment, where they sort of showed these 2 images in the same frame. And I find this incredibly fascinating, 2005, 2013, how our worlds are changing, how it is transforming, from this super solo to the super social, from the super analog to the super digital, within a time frame of just a couple of years. And one can only imagine, you know, how it will look like in the next frame, so to speak. And I think that's sort of incredibly fascinating of a world of today, when we talk about sustainability and innovation and all these sort of words. And the horror of these words is that the more we use them, the less meaning they get if we're not too careful. So how can we really make true interactive and sustainable environments which are long-lasting and at the same time are durable. And so today I want to show you a bit how, in my opinion, this future world could look like. A couple of recent projects which we made, which are about exactly that. What happens when technology jumps out of the computer screen and becomes a part of our environment? And how can we use that to truly create places where people, which people care about in a way? June, what you see here, is one of the first interactive landscapes we made, placed in an old, grey, a bit unsafe pedestrian tunnel in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where hundreds of fibers react to the sounds and emotion of people walking by. So, although filled with tech, it's a sort of a natural experience. It lights up when you walk by. Or reacting to the voices of the kids. So suddenly your environment becomes alive, it's not static, but it becomes a part of you in a way. Becoming more quiet, or here, starting to connect people, sort of like a matchmaking live one-to-one. And so I think this is incredibly fascinating. How can we make environments which are sort of supernatural, which are more intuitive in a way? And placing them in the public space, no sign, no manual, just people going there to experience it. Was a fascinating experiment in a way of making contemporary landscapes. Come back anytime. And so that's sort of interesting. What happens when we start making environments which are more open towards the people? And June something happened weirdly in the tunnel. It was gray, a bit dark, and a lot of caretakers had to keep it clean and safe. But suddenly June was discovered by wedding couples. Apparently there are these websites where you can go to if you want to have your wedding photo taken, the sort of hotspots. And June was #1 on that website for several months. So suddenly this old grey tunnel was invaded by wedding couples who went there, made a lot of noise, started to send me these kind of photos. And it really transformed the space. I thought that was sort of interesting, how on one hand something which is for me about poetry and innovation is for them this sort of almost kitsch-like environments, but it's their moment. June reacts to what they're doing. And that's what it is about, how to reconnect people with their environment in a way. And this is a public version, permanent outside, next to the river, making it in such a way that 60 meters only uses 60 watts, which is like a light bulb. So we literally shut down some street lights, making it that it only uses half street lamp, so we shut down 5. And I think that's interesting, to merge the notion of people and landscape and tech into one, traveling around the world. And so, okay, we had this nice piece and everybody was happy. It became famous in the museum world. And we could have easily, stayed in our little comfort zone or start to make June in different colors, which also we had a lot of requests for. But we thought that would be very boring. So we decided not to do that, and this is actually, I'm saying we, when I launched my own studio 4 years ago, where a company, a creative company was made of 12 people here in the Netherlands, and a second studio in Shanghai. Half of them are software, electronic whiz kids, the chemical, the science, the freaky nerds sitting behind a computer making magic happen. And the other are more fashion designers, architects, product designers. And together they work on the things I'm going to show you now. And this is important, I think, because maybe when you have the notion of artists, that there's some kind of Van Gogh notion, like this genius guy, unappreciated, sitting on an attic somewhere. I don't think that's true. It's all about teaming up with different type of people and making your dreams come true. And so sometimes we work in commission and sometimes we self-commission. This is a fashion project of a high-tech material which becomes transparent based on the heartbeat of the model. So the more, how do I say this politely? The faster her heartbeat goes, the more she reveals of herself, going from white to transparent. So tech as a second skin in a way, or from black to transparent. in a time where we're looking at these bloody iPhones and Facebook all the time, you know, why don't we create true interactive skins of desire and imagination? And so we made this for ourselves. It went viral for all the obvious reasons. And we started to make new versions for it. This is me trying to convince our upcoming, or our current queen, by the way, Princess Royal Highness Maxima, where I'm trying to convince her that if we would make a royal version for her, she would be one of the most innovative people in the world. As you can see, we're going to need 1 or 2 creative sessions about that. But she was really cool about it, by the way. So it's about generating stories. And also, we're working on a suit for men right now, which becomes transparent when they lie. So, let's see how reality looks like then, in a couple of years. Okay. I am not going further in this topic. So what I'm trying to say is that, guys, please, you're getting scared, eh? Yeah, no, don't be. So what is important is to come up with new proposals, to merge worlds of innovation and imagination, and also indeed to think about durability. This is a project, Sustainable Dance Floor, where we produce a floor which literally generates electricity while you're dancing on the floor. Talk about sustainability, not in saying don't do less, because we're not going to do less. We're not going to fly less. We should build smarter airplanes, you know, and sort of participate, engage. So this is
Toyota are sponsors of green design.
The principle of driving your bicycle here, your dynamo. Sure.
Every time we take a step, we leave energy behind. What if we could capture this energy as a clean source of electricity?
So when you press the floor,
developing the technology to capture the energy of dancers like
when
these,
you press the floor,
then
it sort of
using to
moves
power
8
the club's
millimeters.
music and lights. Certain materials produce electricity when squeezed. This is known as the piezo effect. So a dance floor can become one big generator, turning every movement into new power. In fact, any vibrations we make can generate electricity. Even the rattle of the tram taking you home at the end of the night.
And so we made the first one. Here you see the principle. It's actually super simple. I mean, it's like your bicycle, a dynamo light. You press it, it moves 8 millimeters, produces 25 watt. The tile itself uses only 1 watt. It's a combination of LED and mirrors, which actually give you the illusion that there's depth in the floor. So the more you dance, the more deepness there is. And we created this little ghost of light, which freely moves through the grid. It goes to the area where the most energy is produced. We can detect that. So people start to dance more because they want to have this green ghost. It's sort of like a game. Therefore, they produce more electricity, which we can use for lighting or an energy meter or a DJ booth or charging, whatever you think is interesting. And what I like about this is that talking about sustainability, and I think a lot of the previous speakers addressed it as well, think like a network, but create this win-win situation in which you give back instead of, saying do less. And this was sort of the first invention and at the same time the sort of experience which I thought would be interesting when we talk about these future landscapes. And so while this project was being famous and we made several, became a separate company, blah, 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 I was sitting one day in a car on a highway, and this is sort of how my brains work. I don't know, maybe this is the best way to explain it. I'm sure you understand. So thinking about sustainable environments, one day I was sitting in a car on a highway and being literally amazed about these roads. We spend billions on cars, on the R&D, on the design, on the macho-ness of it, but at the same time, the roads themselves, they are still stuck in the age of the Middle Ages, so to speak. Nobody really seems to care about them. And at the same time, they determine how our landscape look like. Like a city like Los Angeles, it's more determined by the roads than the actual buildings. It's public space in a way, in a radical way. Can we not make them more poetic, more innovative? And so I started to imagine that, and you know, thinking about, for example, this is the first artist impression we made, paints, you know them, the glow-in-the-dark paint, which you has as a little boy, these little stars on the ceiling which would shine at night. Well, what if we would sort of push that to a next level, team up with a material manufacturer, making paint which charge at daytime and gives light at night, so you can skip a lot of street lights and at the same time have an energy neutral, energy sufficient lighting system. And so there were a lot of ideas floating around that, but of course, yeah, an idea is just an idea, you know, who cares? But I believe every idea has a consequence, especially in a time like this. And suddenly, when I was sort of working on this and we were doing the first prototypes, two things happened. One is Dutch government sent a press release that they are shutting down streetlights at night because they cannot afford the electricity bill anymore. France, Belgium is doing that. They are having huge problems with that. And you know, it's not gonna get easier. So this is one thing that happened in that week. And second thing what happened is that I was giving a lecture for innovation platform. The Dutch government is trying to push that, this kind of knowledge thinking. But what I didn't know was that this guy was sitting in the audience while I was talking and fantasizing about this new type of roads. And this guy is the main director of Heijmans, one of the biggest road manufacturers in Benelux, in Europe. And he has a problem. He has 8,000 people working, shrinking business. China's coming, can do it €1 cheaper, help, you know. So he was like, I need to innovate. Okay, he has no idea what that means, you know, in a way. They have a lot of craftsmanship, they have an incredible amount of knowledge, but the whole system is changing in a way, in terms of energy, in terms of economy. And so he asked me, he called me the next day on my phone in the studio, based on that lecture. And he literally, the first question that he asked to me was very basic, almost very banal. How much? Which of course was a very good question at the same time, because it means he was serious. But of course, you know, I didn't know it at that time. What do we know about road making? Nothing. We know everything about the future of road making, but still. So what we did was team up. We created sort of West Side Story of two gangs who don't really belong to each other. Sort of the hard-working, slightly conservative, but very good craftsmanship of a road manufacturer, and an artist like me who fantasizes and talks a lot. But we fell in love either way for the innovation of this Dutch landscape. And so we started to make a deal that we would work together the coming 3 years to make it happen. I am not going to sell you light paint in little bottles to the company. I'm not interested in product. I'm interested in process, in learning and working together and making it happen. And so we started to work on the prototypes that you see now. We're actually realizing this one as well. Paints which can change in temperature, can change in color based on temperature. So when the road is normal, you don't see anything. But at the moment it gets colder, it changes from not visible to blue. So automatically these snow flocks pop up. So you see where the road is slippery or not. And the moment it's sunny, you know, something else can happen, like a happy message or something. So suddenly the road knows I'm warm, I'm cold, I'm old, I'm new, I'm safe, I'm not safe, without too much hardware and text and LEDs and stuff like that. And
the futuristic highway can save energy while improving road
immediately
safety.
It was picked up by media.
Mid-next year.
Short movie.
Glow-in-the-dark road markings use photoluminescent paint, which charges during the day and can light roads for up to 10 hours at night. The temperature-responsive road paint shows ice crystal patterns when temperatures fall below 0 to warn drivers of slippery roads. Interactive lights light up when vehicles approach,
sort of like the June version,
as they pass
light
by,
on and off,
saving energy when there is no traffic on the road. Wind lights get energy from roadside pinwheel generators. They light up using the draft produced by passing vehicles. Induction priority lanes are layered with induction coils under the tarmac to recharge electric cars as they drive.
I like this
The
one.
various technologies will be introduced in the Dutch province of Brabant.
And first prototypes. So we made this sort of sample, these sort of SimCity blocks in 2 to 3 minutes, based on the temperature, getting color in it. Oh yeah, I'm still working on this one, from dotted to continuous line for safety roads and things like that. And this was the glowing the line. Usually the sun charges this, but we were in a hurry for the BBC, so okay, we're sort of, what's usually glowing time to 8 hours. Up to roads which charge your electrical car while you're driving over it. I had an electrical car. I love the concept. I hated the thing, and I had to wait for 30 minutes, and I'm late again, and it's like a good idea, really bad designed. So why not literally, excusez-moi, so why not literally give it priority, like in the same way as you fly business class, you give it priority in the road. And these ideas are made in such a way to upgrade existing roads between next year and the coming 3 to 5 years. On actually technology, a lot of the technologies are already out there. It's just a question of pushing it and implementing it. So the value of a project like Smart Highway is, of course, not just the tech, because tech, whatever. Tech is a tool, you know, it's the medium, but what's the message? And what was interesting for me to experience was that immediately the Smart Highway, before we even put a line on the road, it already became worldwide news. So suddenly the road manufacturer and myself started to get design awards, you know, and it's like, huh? It's like, they never experienced that. They are from a world which is about kilometers, and my world is in millimeters, you know. Their world is about how much, and my world is about value. And we sort of, you know, we found a sort of middle ground in that. New York Times popped up, these PDC talking about how to start new businesses, how to create new markets for them, which is super important in a time like this, and how to create values up to this kind of things.
オランダで今年話題になっているのは、一部の地域で、スマート高速道路ができるんですよ。電気自動車の充電が自動に走りながらできる。走りながらできるの？はい、そうです。
I have no idea what to say, but okay. So, but it triggers the imagination of people, and I think that's the real essence, that you dare to invest in new ideas, and then market and client will come to you, instead of forcing yourself in a situation you're not familiar with. So teaming up with people who are outside your comfort zone. I mean, you know, when I first talked to the directors of Heijmans, I told them, just to give you an example, that the curator of Tate Modern would come by the next week to our studio. At Tate Modern, big museum. I was, of course, very excited about that. And they sort of looked at me in a complete state of shock. Because after 30 or 40 minutes, we realized that the word curator in my world means someone who moderates an exhibition. But of course, in their world, it means the one who knocks on your door when your company goes bankrupt. So they were saying, okay, he's going bankrupt. He's actually laughing about it. So it's already in the words that you can sort of misinterpret it, and it's all about creating that mental map. But still, even when there's a lot of enthusiasm and will to make things happen, there were still a lot of people who were a bit in the Netherlands. It happens a lot. I can say that I'm Dutch. Sorry, that they say, "Ja, we want," but "Ja, maar." Yes, but, and then this whole story of why we should not do it, although it's, I think, a really good idea. And so I became really annoyed with that. You know, the lack of will to think in a different way, in a creative way, is around us, is inside me, is inside everyone. And so what we did, instead of, you know, getting depressed about that or annoyed, is we made this little baby. And this is the Ja maar, the yes but chair, which is a chair which, when you sit on it, has a little voice recognition. And the moment and the moment you say those two creative, destructive, horrible words, you get a short but pretty intense little shock on the you know what part of your body. And that works. So, and I love it because suddenly, yeah, how much? Yeah. Aruba, Aruba, Aruba. I love it. Yeah, okay. But you have to use it for yourself as well. Like, I'm using it as well. So, So what is interesting is that, for example, our clients are coming now to the studio, and they're always a little bit scared that they're sitting on it. So the quality of the project goes up, which is, in the end, what we all want. Yeah. Anyway, so thinking about future landscape, windmills, everybody wants them, but not in their backyard. Green energy. We were commissioned to think about sort of Kinderdijk 2.0, the emotion and the innovation. Here you see windmills connecting with lines of light, and according to the amount of wind, more lines will appear, creating these beautiful matrix-like shapes in the wind. We're actually using the leftover energy of the windmill, so it's energy neutral. So sometimes very quiet, and sometimes more present. So in a way, it's about showing wind in a very beautiful, in a very iconic way. And I think that's sort of incredibly important, that in a time which is crashing in terms of economy, in terms of energy, it's all about to create the missing link in that way. And to conclude, so why am I here, you know? Why Aruba? Well, I think Mike and me, or the Prime Minister of Aruba and my humble self, sorry, okay, come on, it's a small country, is that I think what I found fascinating is that we both believe in super local, you know, in making landscapes which are innovative but are also interactive, and to move away from industry, which is literally killing the island and its people, and to move away from generic shopping malls, which all look the same and have no connection with the local community, and to create environments which people care about in a way. I think that's sort of the imagination and the challenge which is there for an Aruba. And I know what you've been saying, that Aruba is small and things like that. Well, you know, I wouldn't worry about that, because the fact when you're small, but you're willing to think super big, that's when the real magic starts kicking in. And I can't wait to work together with all of you to make that happen. Thank you. I called you, Mr. President. I followed the protocol.
I just want to say that when I approached Dan, he didn't say Yamar, he put the king. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that enlightened presentation. I think we would have liked to see a whole lot more of that. And I really hope, Dan, that your passport is current and up to date. Yes? I didn't do that. Because I strongly suspect that a lot of the folks in this room today will be reaching out to you. So, yes. Very good, very good. The housekeeping staff has asked that we announce that someone lost a gold earring during the course of the morning session. So I've got it here in my pocket. And also, there are 2 vehicles still blocking the gate, the main gate. Whoever you are, if you parked by a gate, we really need you to move your vehicles. Thank you. It's number 26285 and 27580. So, on to our next speaker of the afternoon. We have a lovely, lovely lady that is going to come up and speak to us. Her name is Mrs. Mildred Schwengel, and she is an attorney who has built up an extensive experience in many fields of law, particularly in the areas of corporate and business law, merger and acquisitions, banking, finance, and securities, as well as labor laws, national and international trade, and national and international contracts. Mrs. Schwengel has handled numerous transactions as the lead counsel, and she is a litigator as well. She has served 2 terms as the dean of the Aruba Bar Association and has also served on the boards of several charities. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mrs. Schwengel to the stage.
Please allow me to log in. Excellencies, ambassadors, members of the business community of Europe, the Americas, members of the organizing team of this conference, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to thank you all for coming here today and for the invitation to speak to you. It is a great privilege to do so. Today, I would like to elaborate on the sustainability of the Aruban legal system as a place to be your hub, as a place to do business, and the relevant legal parameters thereof. I will first provide you with a brief insight into the position of the Aruba within the Kingdom of the Netherlands and the fundamental principles. Then I will talk about why your investment will be protected if you decide to do business in Aruba. I will also discuss doing business with Aruba as your hub and provide you with information about specific bilateral agreements on the encouragement and reciprocal protection of investments between the Kingdom of the Netherlands and specific countries that are ratified by Aruba. So, what's Aruba's position within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and what are the fundamental principles? Aruba is a self-governing island nation and is one of the 4 members of the kingdom, together with Curaçao, Sint Maarten, and the Netherlands itself. Because Aruba is an autonomous entity within the kingdom, it has full autonomy and jurisdiction over its internal affairs. The government of the kingdom is responsible for certain kingdom affairs, for instance, legal defense and foreign affairs, but Aruba has full autonomy over its own jurisdiction and over its internal affairs. The relationship between the 4 members of the kingdom is constitutionally enshrined in the Charter for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The kingdom carries democracy in the format of a constitutional monarchy. With regard to the state of Aruba, we can say that it is comprised of the governor, who is the king's representative in Aruba and heads the government consisting of an executive council of ministers headed by the prime minister and the governor, a 21-member parliament chosen in direct popular elections every 4 years, and the judiciary. The members of the judiciary are appointed by His Majesty the King. Cornerstone of the appointment is that the judiciary is not elected and is appointed for life. This means that the judiciary will step down when they reach their pension age. The judiciary will only be dismissed upon own request or in the event of a dismissal by the Supreme Court. The government has no say about the dismissal of the judiciary. So even if a judge would rule against the government, this doesn't mean that the judge will get fired or will be suspended. The judiciary must be independent and impartial. Our ultimate court of appeal in cassation is the Supreme Court of the Netherlands, and the Prime Minister did refer to that this morning also. With regards to the laws, the Charter stipulates that the laws of the members of the kingdom must adhere to the principles of concordance, which means that the laws of the members should be in accordance with each other. By ruling of the Supreme Court, the principle of concordance also applies to the jurisprudence issued by the lower courts of the members, This principle safeguards the stability of the laws and jurisprudence within the kingdom. It entails, in my opinion, that relatively minor differences are accepted, but that the fundamentals should always be the same. The Charter imposes on the members the obligation to ensure fundamental rights and liberties, legal certainty, and a sound administration. These specific obligations are earmarked to be kingdom affairs. Furthermore, the Charter prescribes that the members are obligated to submit to the government of the kingdom any national ordinance whose purpose it is to change the respective constitutions of the member states with regard to the fundamental rights and liberties, the structure of the government, and the judiciary. These fundamental principles form the basis of the kingdom, and Aruba is part of the kingdom, as I just outlined. So let's move to Aruba as a hub. Let's assume that you decide to enter into a business venture. During or after this conference, you believe that this will work. You may decide to incorporate a Aruban entity, a VBA or an NV, or maybe you decide not to do that. You just wish to use your entity that you are familiar with in your own jurisdiction. Is that possible? Can you do that? What licenses are required, and do you have to register the company? You may raise the question whether you, your own company, or a management company can be appointed as a managing director. You may ask many questions. For instance, what is the corporate balance of power that is regulated within the legal entities under Aruban corporate law? What are your liabilities as a shareholders, and what are the applicable economic policies and guidelines? So let's assume that your company has a reserve of retained earnings that were not disbursed to the shareholders, and that you wish to transfer these retained earnings to your newborn Aruban company. Which rules apply? Will the Central Bank of Aruba need to provide your company with specific business licenses or specific licenses? And what is the level of protection that is granted to your investment? In my opinion, these questions are all fairly easy to answer. A high level of comfort can be provided to you about your protection if you use Aruba as a hub, as a foreign investor, setting up your business venture because of our legal system and the fundamentals that we just discussed. Allow me to make some preliminary remarks and then go into detail and elaborate further. The Aruban legal system is based on the Dutch civil law system. Aruban laws are written, for instance, in comparison with the common law system, the application of customary law is exceptional. The role of jurisprudence is important because in practice it is impossible to apply the law properly without also taking into account the relevant jurisprudence. The Dutch system of law is based on the French Civil Code. The new civil law books, which went into force in Aruba in 2002, were heavily influenced by the German Bürgerlich Gesetzbuch. I really hope I pronounced that well. I conclude, if I look at the list of participants of this conference, that our legal system, because of its indicated origin, must be easy to comprehend for most of you, and also for your councils, because the grandfathers of your legal system and ours have the same genes. To go into details with regard to the protection of your business interests, the laws in Aruba are published. They are clear in general, and they are just. The government and private entities are accountable under Aruban law. Fundamental rights are protected. This includes persons and property. And as outlined, justice is delivered by independent and impartial justices. The Aruban system of law has proven to be reliable, sustainable, and solid. Your business interests will be protected by the fundamental principles we just discussed, but also by authoritative treaties such as the European Convention on the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedom and the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. When engaging yourself to operate in or by way of this jurisdiction, you are entering a reliable, sustainable, and solid jurisdiction that breeds the rule of law in and out. The rule of law, in its initial interpretation, means a legal system in which no one, including the government, is above the law, where laws protect fundamental rights and where justice is accessible to all. It has found its origin in the Age of Enlightenment and was driven by ethical considerations, human rights, and civil rights. The rule of law used to be a matter of justices, attorneys, and maybe or some politicians in the old days. This has changed over the last decades. The rule of law has evolved into an economic parameter and a way to characterize the social characteristics of a country. Why? Studies have shown that the rule of law is a prerequisite for economic growth and investments. And to be more specific, a country carrying an independent and impartial judiciary and a sound political system like Aruba contribute to the attraction of investors and entrepreneurs. The rule of law is therefore relevant to, for instance, rating agencies as Fitch, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, but also to financial institutions, business leaders, but also, for instance, the World Bank prioritizes the rule of law when investing and granting loans in or out specific jurisdictions. Estimates show that as of 2005, almost half the World Bank's total lending had some rule of law component. The rule of law is important to investors and entrepreneurs. When you decide to operate through this jurisdiction, the rule of law will matter to you. Please allow me to share with you the line of thinking of Mr. Bhatia, Vice President of General Electric, a corporation that is number 5 on the Fortune 500 list. I think someone, Marlon, you're just coming in. I don't know if you can please assist.
We will now hear from Karan Bhatia, Vice President and Senior Counsel for Global Government Affairs and Policy at GE, where he oversees GE's engagement with governments around the world on policy. 2008, after a distinguished career in the U.S. government. Over the course of 7 years, Karan served in numerous senior government positions at the Department of Commerce and Transportation, and most recently as the Deputy U.S. Trade Representative in the White House, where he was President Bush's lead trade negotiator with Asia and Africa. Mr. Bhatia currently serves as Chairman of the Board of the National Center for APEC. He is a member of the Trilateral Commission and a member of the World Economic Forum's Global Agenda Council on the Global Trade System. Thank you.
I feel like apologizing to Mr. Bhatia for interrupting his speech. To provide you with some empirical information, there is a World Justice Project that has developed a World Rule of Law Index. If we look at the score of the Netherlands, and of course I look at the judiciary because of the Supreme Court and the legal system, we can only conclude that operating in or by way of Aruba is the way to go. Aruba is a safe haven for your investment because of its legal system, and that entails a well-functioning rule of law. But there is more that makes Aruba attractive to you. Aruba has ratified many bilateral agreements with regard to the encouragement and reciprocal protection of investments with specific contracting states. These bilateral agreements in general apply to all investments made by a company incorporated in Aruba, regardless who the ultimate shareholder is. These bilateral agreements grant investments and the investor fair and equitable treatment, many times national treatment, so non-discriminatory, or on a most favored nation basis. I'm talking about taxes, I'm talking about fees, charges, exemptions. Guarantee that payments relating to an investment may be transferred in a freely transferable currency without restriction or delay. Grant constant protection of the investment, also taking or expropriation by the recipient country. These bilateral agreements in general predetermine the commercial basis for compensation to the investor in the event of expropriation. The agreements also in general pre-submit the recipient country to impartial international arbitration for disputes between the investor and the recipient country. It also awards their protection to the investor for an additional 15 years after the date on which the recipient country would terminate the bilateral agreement. So what does this mean? This means that an investor, for instance, from Brazil, that would, for example, invest in real estate or a port in Poland, can obtain all these benefits by investing not directly from Brazil to Poland, because there is not a bilateral treaty there, but to use Aruba as a hub country. This can be done in a very simple and cost-efficient manner. The investor can incorporate an Aruban entity. This takes a few weeks and costs approximately $1,600. The Brazil investor directs the Aruban company to make the investment in Poland. The Brazil investor remains directly or indirectly the sole shareholder of the Aruba company and can repatriate the investment and proceed at any time. As a result, the investment of the Brazil investor in the Aruba company is fully protected under Aruba civil law. The investment by the Aruba company in Poland is fully protected under the bilateral agreement between the Kingdom, and Aruba is part of that agreement, and Poland. And this, ladies and gentlemen, applies to all the states listed. So this brings me to my conclusion. Without a doubt, Aruba is a solid, reliable jurisdiction, a decent jurisdiction, a place for your investment. The rule of law applies while we are assured of independent and impartial judiciary. In addition, if you decide to welcome Aruba and accept Aruba's jurisdiction offer to become your hub, your investment may also be protected by several bilateral agreements. I thank you all for your valuable time and wish you a fruitful conference and lots of success with your business endeavors. Thank you.
Masha, danke, Senora Schwengel. Thank you for that. If any of you had any doubt whether Aruba would be a sound investment for your countries, there should be no more doubt after that fantastic detailed explanation by Mrs. Schwengel. So thank you, thank you. Lucilla Quant and Franklin Adams, please report to Marinas in the foyer or identify yourself to one of the AMA staff members, Lucilla Quant and Franklin Adams. Our next speaker works for a very exciting and important organization called TNO. TNO is the largest independent research organization in the Netherlands. Its mission is to create innovations that sustainably boost the competitive strength of industry and well-being of society. Currently, Dr. Van Bracht, Mart Van Bracht, is the managing director of TNO Energy, one of the 7 research areas of TNO. In TNO Energy, a staff of approximately 500 researchers conduct national and international research and development projects that are focused on a secure, safe, efficient, and sustainable energy supply. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Mart Van Bracht to the stage.
Yes, that's what I need. Yeah. Well, good afternoon to all of you. Distinguished guests and Arubian friends. It's always great to be here on Aruba. First of all, the weather is great, the landscape is beautiful, the beaches are great, and the people are hospitality is great from the Arubian people. But I also like to go to Aruba because it's a perfect place to do research and development. And it's a splendid location to do business, because that's Aruba too. It was in 2010 that the government of Aruba invited TNO to open a branch office. And the objective was to bring expertise and assist Aruba in its energy transition. At the same time, we were asked to develop a new economic pillar on the island, focused on sustainable technologies. And after several discussions and visits, we saw that this government meant what I have thought about. They had plans, they had a strategy, was sound. And that's why we decided to open an office on Aruba. So we started with our office in the beginning of 2011 with 1 person, and now after 18 months, we have a staff on this island of 7 researchers. 5 of them are local and 2 of them are from the Netherlands. And we expect that this amount will be doubled in 1 year time. We're active not only in Aruba, but also in the other islands in the environment, and recently started with working on Latin America. Please let me share you some experience we have on the island. This is more or less what I want to present to you. What are the challenges and opportunities on the island? What's the contribution of TNO? What's our approach? And again, I want to finish off with some collaboration opportunities and some experience we had until now with working on Aruba. Well, this one has been discussed already several times. We are all aware that Aruba is aiming to develop a reliable, affordable, but also a sustainable energy system. And we currently, to a great extent, Aruba is dependent on fossil fuels. And Aruba wants to change that and become a total sustainable island. Well, Aruba is well positioned to tap local renewable energy resources. It's almost the sun is always shining, the wind is blowing, we have deep oceans with cold water, and there are also possibilities for geothermal energy. So perfect place, perfect spot to do research on sustainable energy. But before you start with implementing technology, it's really important that your system is reliable. So you'll have to take into account also local circumstances. And that means that technology has to be evaluated. We have to consider how technology will perform under Caribbean conditions. And that means a hot, humid environment with high winds. Many technology which is available is developed for northern latitudes and may not work perfectly under Caribbean situations. So we have to gain experience in this, and Aruba is a perfect place to test new technology. So new technology has to get tested under local circumstances, but what's also important is business models, because bringing in sustainable energy means that business models are going to change. So we do not need only innovations on technology, but also innovations in business model. And that can also be experienced on Aruba. So we have to make sure that the energy transition is approached in a systems approach. So there has to be a balance between sustainability goals, affordability, and reliability. So TNO aims to work with partners in and outside Aruba to find this perfect balance. So let's look to the TNO contribution and approach. First of all, TNO, as already said, is the largest research and development organization in the Netherlands. It's a public organization, state-owned. Approximately 4,500 people are active in TNO, and we are also one of the largest in Europe. We are in the top 5 of Europe. Our annual turnover is approximately 600 million euros a year. We're active in several fields, and that's in health, safety, energy, mobility, industrial innovation, built environment, and information society. Until now, we're almost all the energy we put on Aruba is focused on energy topics. But we can also present all kinds of other technology to Aruba. It's all available. So we have a Caribbean branch office in TNO, and in this office we are active with, first of all, sustainable energy systems, but also with water management and waste management. We're active with the so-called green faculty, so we test PV installations, we do training courses. We're starting with test and certification activities to look to the energy efficiency of technology, and we also started geological services focused on natural resources. TNO aims to leverage a broad base of experience to provide independent advice for energy transitions. So we started in 2012 with conveying key partners to develop a roadmap for sustainable energy. After that, we started with a so-called smart community. We'll come back to that later on. And just currently, we start with making a smart grid roadmap for the utility companies of Aruba. All focused for the general idea of becoming a totally sustainable island. What you see here is in the roadmap which we developed until now. We brought together in this roadmap all the stakeholders available, so not only the government, but also the energy sector and the social household development. And we established a stakeholder-supported sustainable energy mix targets for 2020. We inventoried current projects and assessed their contribution to 2020 targets, and they're shown here in green. And we also recommended to develop a smart community on Aruba. So this roadmap is the basis for the work we are doing on Aruba. During lunchtime, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the Carbon War Room. The Carbon War Room will be a partner to further elaborate and further develop this roadmap. And, for example, with the help of Carbon War Room, find investors who want to invest in sustainable solutions in Aruba. This roadmap also made clear that we need some kind of experience center where we could do some research on new technology. So to sum up, the TINO philosophy is involve essential stakeholders, develop locally supported solutions, open innovation platforms. And that means that we need a platform that allows multiple partners to bring the most locally appropriate solutions. So what we don't want is lock-in solutions. And last but not least, we want to create an adaptive system. A lot of technology which is available is new and will change quite rapidly. So every solution has to be adapted easily, because a lot of investments are involved with that. The Smart Community Center. Well, this Smart Community Center was an outcome of the roadmap discussion, and the Smart Community Center fills the need to create a safe experimental environment in which partners involved can develop and experience in new technology applications before scaling up, for example, to island scale or to a larger scale. Development of new concepts also requires meaningful involvement of citizens. So the Smart Community Site Plan, for example, was developed in close collaboration with local community. Another example is a research we did, a survey we did, with respect to the attitude of citizens to energy consumption. It gives valuable insight in the current attitude of citizens towards energy use. And that's of great importance for future developments. Let's go to the collaboration opportunities. Smart Community of Aruba. And that's really special. The Smart Community of Aruba is a 20-unit housing development and co-creation location in which local partners and other interested companies can do tests and demonstrations. It's a platform for shared learning by doing, and it's an opportunity to develop new public-private partnerships, and so technology can be tested and can be scaled up to island levels. The development of this plan is really special. After the roadmap session, it became clear that we needed such a site. And then in a few months' time, the plan was ready for execution. For example, we tried to build such a community in the Netherlands for many, many years, and it's almost impossible to build that because of the many regulations, and it is really, really difficult to make such a test site. And Aruba did that in a few months' time. And later on this year, it will be opened. And I hope that all of you will be available to see it. So the intention of TINO is to develop scalable solutions at islands levels to contribute to Aruba's long-term goals, but also to develop an export product for use in other islands and other countries, for example, in Latin America. This is what we can do on the Smart Community Center. We can do testing and research on building, on grid, smart grid and electric grid on electrical vehicles, on solar and wind technology, can conduct research on behavioral change, and we can do all kinds of experiments and research on water and waste. So this is a real special center. So this center is open for everybody who is involved. It's an open innovation platform, so we welcome new partners. So everybody involved who is interested to use this platform, please be welcome. So the Caribbean branch of TNO is your partner in innovation. So all of you are interested in research on energy topics or others, they are welcome. Please contact me or my colleagues, and we can see we can do together. Let's finish off with some practical evaluations. Why is TNO on Aruba and not on another island? Well, we checked we decided already some years ago as TNO we have to go internationally. The markets on the Netherlands and in Europe, they are decreasing. And for example, for energy topics, energy is an international topic. You can't do that in your own country anymore. So you need new chances, new borders. South America is one of them. To start business with something like nothing, that's really difficult. So we looked to an environment which was easy to access and was felt a little bit like home. And after inventory and discussions with several islands, we decided to start in Aruba. Well, what are the benefits of starting in Aruba? First, it is a safe and reliable island. That is really important. It has a stable and ambitious government. It's still a part of Europe, but located in Southern America. So a lot of legislation is almost the same or the same as in Europe. It's a multilingual country. Everybody here speaks Spanish, Dutch, and English. Really easy. It's a mix of Latin, European, and American culture. If you walk around here, you can see lots of Americans, you see lots of South American people. So this island knows how to deal with multiple cultures. The networks are really excellent. I can really assure you that we've been introduced by Aruba on several countries and on several companies. And that's really fantastic. And it showed that Aruba's networks are perfect. The facilities on these islands also are in a very positive way. For example, the airport is already mentioned several times. We are just in 1.5 hours in in several countries in Southern America. You're rapidly in the United States, and because of the pre-clearance, that's really a nice trip. It's great to land in Miami and see the long queues waiting to get into the country, and you can just easily walk by. That's really great. And again, what's really important for doing business on Aruba is that you get the support, the fully support of the Aruban government. Their facilities, they're ambitious, they want to make the most of it, and that really helps. So my tip to all of you is start doing business on Aruba. They really can do it. Thank you very much.
Okay, so did you all hear the tip? Yes? What was the tip? What is the takeaway from Dr. Van Bracht? Go ahead, I'm waiting. Start doing business in Aruba. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Van Bracht. And also for mentioning that the Aruba Smart Community would be an excellent pilot for other countries also to imitate. So thank you for that. Our next speaker is the head of KPMG Sustainability Practice in the Netherlands, Mr. Bernd Hendriksen. Please help me in welcoming Mr. Hendriksen to the stage.
Thank you for that introduction and that kiss. Thank you for inviting me to Aruba. I'm going to talk and about sustainability. I was asked 3 months ago to talk about sustainability. And we've already heard a lot about sustainability. And I couldn't agree more with Mr. Jan-Peter Balkenende when he described what sustainability really means. It is about integrity, it is about carbon, it is about water, deforestation. And above all, it is about wealth and well-being. So, I fully agree that sustainability moved from the Brundtland report towards corporate social responsibility and now into the concept of shared value, defined by Michael Porter. To me, sustainability is also the strategic response to the challenges we face in a changing world. And this conference is about bringing parties together to tackle these changes and these challenges in the world. And of course also to grasp the opportunities. And I think Aruba have noticed these opportunities already and wants to be ahead of the curve. As Mr. Laurens-Jan Brinkhorst this morning says to us, who would expect 15 years ago in the West that Aruba is leading the sustainability debate right now? So my message to all of you is, expect the unexpected. And that's exactly the title of a piece of research we did within KPMG, and I want to share with you this report. It's a big report, but don't worry, I will be brief. So what this report does is to look at some key social and environmental trends, and then we ask, what are the consequences? This report is published 20 years after the Rio de Janeiro summit in 1992. And since then, the world has undergone massive changes. We've heard a lot about it already. Our human footprint on the earth is growing and unsustainable. Decoupling human progress from resource use and environmental decline is our main challenge. This challenge will also be one of the greatest sources of business success. What is likely to happen over the next 20 years? And what does it mean for profit? What does it mean for loss? What does it mean for your planning? And what does it mean for your strategy right here, today? This report was called Expect the Unexpected for good reasons. Rules, regulations, resource prices, they are all going to be changed. And the impact will be massive. There are companies represented here today that will lose all their profit and more if they don't plan for action and plan for change. And of course, there are companies who will benefit from these opportunities this creates. So why did we do this report in particular time, at this particular time? First of all, because we see that social and environmental trends are becoming much more transformational for many organizations. It's country by country, sector by sector. And this is not restricted to any particular sector. We believe this is reality and it's here to stay. Secondly, because we believe that as a global professional service provider, we have a critical role to play in our audit, tax and service advisory services. That role is to help our clients to come to grips with the emerging risks and opportunities. But not only that, we want to stimulate the debate. We want to bring facts into the debate, and of course, we want to inspire new thinking. Thanks again for the invitations, and I'm delighted to provide some insights in business value in a changing world. I will bring some facts and figures in the debate. And I'm afraid they don't look good. Don't worry, I don't wear a suit of Daan Rozengaarde, so if any of the numbers is wrong, you won't see my skin. But let me start with these figures. This is what happened the last 20 years. This simple slide gives us a few clues. And this comes with an accelerated footprint. In the chart, we clearly can see how the world has gone into an overdrive of mass consumption and production. Let me give you a few numbers. Meat consumption up by 26%. And that is a wealth effect, and it's only just starting because of growing population and growing middle class. We see use of industrial metals up 60%. Production of plastics up 130%. And air transport up a massive 230%. Here we have trends that cannot and will not continue on a business as usual base. So who's going to change business does business? Governments, NGOs? Of course they have a role, but in the end it's business that can come up with smarter and more efficient products and services to help address these challenges. So what about the next 20 years? This report, Expect the Unexpected, presents 10 sustainability megaforces. And that will affect all businesses in the next 2 decades and beyond. So let me take a look at just 3 of these megaforces. Climate change. Now today some people feel fatigue when climate change is mentioned. And that's a good reason to mention it. Climate change presents a critical long-term challenge to humanity. Scientists predict severe impacts including sea level rising, droughts, floods and storms. And these are just the physical risks, but the regulatory and reputational risk comes along with it as well. Another megaforce, energy and fuel. Energy demand is likely to increase by 1/3 by 2035. At a minimum, this is going to lead to rising energy security costs. While some businesses are moving slowly towards alternative and renewable resource of energy, most corporations continue to depend heavily on oil, gas for power. Only just 3% of electricity generation came from non-hydro renewable sources in 2010. And finally, water. If current trends continue, then global demand for fresh water would exceed supply by 40% by 2030. Clearly, that's impossible. So what will happen is that cost and conflict will increase. Business leaders here need to make sure that organizations understand these megaforces and are planning for the impact of it. And I'm afraid all the megaforces are predicted to grow more powerful and have increasing impacts on business and society over the next 20 years. Of particular note is the spending power of global middle classes, which is predicted to almost triple. My point is, business as usual is not an option. Now, at this point, you might well be saying, so what? We've all read it in the newspapers about climate change, water scarcity. We've heard it all before. And I agree. I agree that if we make big statements about changes and challenges, and we do not bring this down to hard facts about business value, then that does not help. And this is where we have tried to move the debate forward. We all need hard numbers on this. So here are some. This innocent-looking bar chart on the screen is actually very serious news for most of the companies. For some it means trouble, and for others it will be good news and generate a lot of demand for their products and services. The graph shows the 2010 profit of 11 key sectors. And it shows the external environmental cost per year shown as a proportion of that profit. These are the costs that are not in the balance sheet. These are the costs that are not in the financial statements. And these are the costs that companies are not paying, but may have to pay when regulation and scarcity effects kick in. And by the way, this is already happening. My message to the business leaders today is it's prudent for you to expect to pay a rising proportion of these costs in the future. The amount at stake is not nothing, it's high. For industry as a whole, we calculate it equals 41% of its profit, but for some sectors it's much more. As we see for the food producers, they would have to pay all over their profit twice over. So let me focus on the Caribbean and Latin America. Aruba wants to develop as a green gateway between Europe and the Americas, and in order to be successful in the transition to a sustainable economy, we would like to advise Aruba to focus on at least 4 megatrends: energy and fuel, water scarcity, food security, and ecosystem decline. These trends will have, or already have, a major impact on business in the Americas, and in particular, and therefore also on the development of the region as a whole. In the remaining of this presentation, I will dive into these 4 mega forces and come up with examples and solutions all over the globe in order to provide you and your company with tips and tricks. So let me first start with ecosystem decline. Many companies are dependent on ecosystems and biodiversity, and the loss of biodiversity is one of the greatest risks facing business. Fortunately, we start to understand the value of biodiversity. Let me present some facts again. They don't look good. It has been calculated, for example, that the costs associated with the loss of ecosystem services due to deforestation are between $2.6 and $6.5 trillion. This is per year. So why would we waste this money? And even more important, when do we reach the limits of the Earth? Well, in some cases we already did. This example of Atlantic cod stock shows that we already went too far. Once we have breached a certain threshold, ecosystems do not have the capacity anymore to recover, and this is just one of the many examples. In particular, the food and beverage sector is at risk. This is because their agriculture production is reliant on biodiversity and ecosystem services. In the food and beverage sector, only 48% of the companies had a well-communicated risk and opportunity assessment in place. Examples are Unilever, United Plantations, M&S, and Sepp Miller. But what about the other 52%? Are they expecting the unexpected? The next topic is food security. The global demand for food is predicted to grow to 70% by 2050. So we are facing some serious challenges in this perspective. And again, the facts are not in our favor. We are already touching the limits of the capacity of our planet, and in the next decades we expect another 2 billion inhabitants and a fast-growing middle class. And as a result, global food prices could rise by 70 to 90% over the next years. This means that we have to move to a new approach towards supply chain management. A short-term horizon and focus on first-tier suppliers will no longer be enough. In water-scarce regions, for example, agriculture producers are likely to have to compete for supplies with other water-intensive industries, such as electric utilities or mining. And patterns of productions are likely to be driven by crop yields, water availability, and consumer preferences. This requires a new approach towards sourcing in order to reduce the risks and secure the availability of food. Unilever, for example, refuses to use palm oil until certified sources are available. Another example is Nestlé. We recently implemented a framework for Nestlé to make sure that Nestlé is able to meet the targets on sustainable cacao in 2020. A company like Nutreco is already working on substitutions of raw materials. Nutreco is a major supplier of fish feed to salmon growers across the world. For 1 kilo salmon, you need 3 kilos of anchovy to feed. Now Nutreco is funding research into the replacement of fish meal by plant-based proteins, aiming to reduce fish meal's levels in its feeds. By sourcing more readily available products, Nutreco and its consumers are protected against volatility. Already in 2011, Nutreco increased the profit expectations for its fish feed division from 6 to 7%. So sustainability and profit are here hand in hand. The third mega force, which have an impact on this region, is water scarcity. According to the Water Resource Group, the expected water shortage will be the greatest in the southern regions. Agriculture in India, Sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, and parts of Latin America are forecast to create the most additional water demand. Water scarcity creates great risk for water-intensive sectors like clothing industry, automobile, electronics, and food and beverage again. In order to reduce the risks, business have to use water much more efficiently or eliminate water use entirely through closed-loop processes and water recycling. Water scarcity is a global issue with local implications. In many regions, the impact of a changing climate on water availability and quality is already tangible. A well-known example was the worst flood in 70 years in Thailand in 2011. The flood crippled manufacturing for almost 400 suppliers of computer components and automobile parts. Results was that production for Toyota, Nissan, and Isuzu was suspended. Canon and Sony lost production capacity. So the final mega force I would like to discuss today is energy and fuel. It is clear that energy business must prepare for shifts in fuel mix due to policy, supply, and fuel prices. These businesses, particularly those involved in renewable energy, must also remain actively involved in the policy debates. We've had good examples of this morning. Other industries need to pay attention, of course, as well. Fossil fuel dependent industries such as aviation and shipping will need robust strategies and plans to address fuel price volatility and potential shortages. This morning, Minister de Meza presented the highlights of his energy strategy for Aruba. I think a good example which we can all learn from. This slide shows the proportion of various energy sources in world primary energy demand. It tells us that the total supply of renewables at 18% remains well below the level of the single fossil fuel by 2035. And as a response on the slow growth of production of renewable energy, KPMG launched the first Green Tax Index last week in Asia during the Pacific Tax Summit in Shanghai. And the Green Tax Index explores how governments are using their tax systems to respond to global challenges. including energy security. Our analysis shows that at least 30 new green tax incentives, penalties, or regulations change have been introduced since we studied since January 2011. The ranking shows that 6 countries, US, Japan, South Korea, France, China, were named as the most active in using tax as a tool to drive sustainable corporate behavior and achieving green policy goals. In general, the Asian governments tend to respond well to global challenges, like energy security. Japan leads the ranking for tax measures to promote the use and manufacture of green vehicles. South Korea leads the ranking for green innovation, which suggests that South Korea is especially active in using its tax code to encourage green research and development. And it's obvious that Aruba will be leading this index in the near future, as we all witnesses the MOU on energy efficiency and renewables this morning. So, let me summarize. In my presentation, I've been talking about the challenges that business faces and the opportunities that arise as well. The impact of sustainability megaforces will be too big to ignore, so they will have to be addressed. Addressing them will require new thinking, as we heard from Daan Roosgaard as well. It will require a reassessment of conventional ideas on production, consumption, and business operations. Right now, most companies are still at the first stage on this process, the stage where they comply to regulations, but not proactive and reactive, but more reactive. Where companies should move to is a new business model. A model where sustainability is a part of business decision making, where parties work together based on a shared vision and shared goals. Sometimes it's not so hard. In many cases, the long-term trends and short-term financial interests go hand in hand. This is where you find the low-hanging fruit. I'm talking about things like energy, water and waste, and introducing green products into the markets. You would be amazed how much low-hanging fruit is still out there. On the other end of the spectrum, there are plenty of cases where the long-term trends are in conflict with the short-term advantage. Certain types of investments today don't deliver the kind of return that makes sense right now. For example, the retrofitting energy efficiency in existing infrastructure. And there's a very interesting middle ground. This is where you solve the dilemma by marrying the short term and the long term. This is where you become the solutions provider. That can be a way to create first mover advantage, competitive advantage. And to do that, you may have to take the kind of leap that other companies are not willing to take. Let me give you an example of this. Philips created an alliance with government and NGOs to put energy efficiency on lighting on the agenda. It helped to create legislation and phase out the usual lamp, accelerating the company's own introduction of LED technology. This move created an edge for Philips. So business cannot achieve the transition to a sustainability economy alone. Cooperation is key, and both the public and private sectors have a vital role to play. This final chart sets out some initiatives that can be taken by both governments and businesses. Getting public-private partnerships right will be crucial, because most national governments simply do not have the funds to address megaforces alone, and businesses need to write policy frameworks and incentives to unlock capital. This conference at Aruba is the start of new partnerships between companies and governments from different countries. Together we would make the transition to a sustainable economy. So think the unexpected, and more importantly, when you go back to your organization, do the unexpected. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hendrickson. We appreciate those tips and the tricks. And I'm sure that after today, we will all expect the unexpected. Before we take a short break, we want to, and Ryan, I'm sorry, can you give me my iPhone? But we would like to remind everyone that we do have our lounge across the way with a lot of good information and massage chair. If you didn't get to use it earlier, you can use it at the end of the day today. But we have some painting going on. Has any of you participated in the painting? Anybody? Thank you. Okay, good. I see some hands going up. Well, the artists have started some additional paintings, which I promised them that some of you would participate in when you go out there. And I just want to share with you real quickly what the meaning or the purposes behind them. Well, of course, it's so that you can de-stress after sitting in here for so many hours and listening to us talk. We want you to be able to free your minds and be creative, so please join in the painting. But we also are hoping that some of you will consider purchasing those paintings at the end of the day today. Part of the proceeds of the purchase of those paintings will be given to the B1 Community Foundation. And B1 Community Foundation's a central, it has a goal. The central goal of B1 is to involve teenagers in our community. And so one way for us to do this is to build a national volunteerism platform to connect both the local nonprofit organizations as well as the volunteers on the island. And so by organizing this, by having this foundation, it allows for young and not so young people alike an opportunity to get involved in the community. And so the idea is that if people get more involved in their communities, they will value their communities more, and they will also value each other more, which will bring us closer to our vision of well-being and the pursuit of happiness for our people, our citizens of Aruba. So please consider buying one or more of the paintings at the end of the day today, and we appreciate you. In the interest of time, because we do have speakers, 3 more sets of speakers this afternoon after the break, we ask that you just grab some coffee or a cold beverage and please come back into the room so that we can wrap up the afternoon